Hi everyone, welcome to the search agency's very first TSA talk. My name's Tina El-Ghazi and I'm the Director of Marketing at the search agency, and we are all so excited to have you here today to discuss some powerful organic search trends that every digital marketer should be aware of in 2019. Today you'll be hearing from 3 of the search agency's senior SEOs, and they've lined up some really interesting insights that we're looking forward to sharing with you. Now, these guys are smart and they move fast, so if you have questions during the presentation, just head to Twitter and use our hashtag TSATalk, and I'll be mining Twitter for the best questions for our speakers, and we'll be hosting a live Q&A at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned for that. This webinar is also being recorded, so look out for an email with the link to the recording, or head to the search agency's Facebook page to watch the Facebook Live recording after the event. All right, let's get started. So there's been a lot of changes to Google's search engine results pages, or the SERPs, in the last 6 months. So to kick things off, we have the one and only Brandon Chicola, our Senior Director of Earned Media and Strategy, who's going to be walking us through exactly which changed. All right, take it away, Brandon.
All right. Hi everyone. So first thing I wanted to really kind of kick things off with, a little bit of scary news. This past year, Rand Fishkin from SEO Moz, now of SparkToro, released a slide in one of his presentations about the ever-changing SERPs and on-SERP SEO to discuss some trends that he was seeing in terms of where traffic is really headed. So what he did was he compared organic traffic starting in February 26 to February 2018. And you'll look and see, what the big changes are in this traffic. So if we start with the top row and look at desktop, we can see that in general, desktop between 2016 and 2018 is the same-ish. Paid traffic grew just slightly. And then there's this no-clicks category. And this no-clicks category is something really intriguing because it basically means that there's information that's coming from Google's own properties or from various search integrations that basically are not delivering traffic to your site. So that's a 34% that's not going there. But the scary bit is what's been happening on mobile. So between 2016 and 2018, we see that there's a 20% drop in organic traffic that's actually getting to your site. And if we look to see where that traffic's moving, it's moving into that no-click searches category. So what does that mean? And what does that mean for brands moving forward? Well, if we look for some clues, we can find them pretty easily. So this past year, Google also had their 20-year anniversary, and they announced 3 big shifts. So what do they say? The first thing they said is they're looking to begin to shift from answers to journeys. And they say that to help you resume tasks where you left off and learn new interests and hobbies, we're bringing new features to search that help you with ongoing information needs. The second shift that they mentioned is a shift from queries to queryless ways of finding information. And this is a way of saying that they are, they've gone through years and years and years of understanding search, but now they're moving into understanding how do we just discover information? How do they surface information to people? And so they say we can surface relevant information related to your interests, even when you don't have a specific query in mind. They are now capable of predicting at scale what sort of interest we have based on previous queries that we may have had in our search history or relevant sites that we may have had surrounding a particular topic. The third one that they mention is a shift from text to more visual ways of finding information. And this is a trend that even people like Leonard Shlain have mentioned over the years, that we are moving to becoming much more of a visual culture. And so what they're looking to do here is to revamp and bring us more visual content to search and completely redesigning Google Images. There have been lots of announcements about that this week. We won't be talking quite as much about this particular shift today as we will the first 2, but we will be having many more upcoming seminars and webinars to dive into the deeper sides of these. So one of the first things they mentioned in their shift is 2 bits, which are activity cards and collections. So activity cards, which we can see on the left here, this is someone typing in camping into the search bar, and they can see all of their related activity. You'll also notice you can kind of tell when these are showing up because it says related activity, only you can see these. And this is to basically help you pick up where you left off. being able to kind of revisit a query that you've had in the past, related, to something you were searching for there. And then it'll just start displaying relevant pages from your history and previous queries that you may have had related to an overall topic. And these cards are only shown when they're deemed useful to a particular search that you're returning to or querying again. And they're not going to appear for every search. The second that we are looking at on the right-hand side is what we call collections. And this is the ability to add content from previous activity cards or previous searches into larger collections, making it easier to keep track of content you visited. So if you're kind of like building up kind of an idea board for a vacation or a particular travel opportunity, you can kind of collect all of this information in one place. Along with this, Google will begin suggesting content to help further explore those topics or content that you saved and things that you've searched for in the past. And this brings us to the biggest shift that Google is taking right now. They say that they're taking a shift from searches into journeys, and building upon that, and building upon the previous developments that they've had around the knowledge graph, we now have this third layer called the topic graph, and a revision of what we've known prior to this as Google Now or Google Feed, into what they're calling Google Discover. We are making a shift from search to discovery. I'm just going to pause for a second and make sure that we're doing okay. Okay, good, great. So let's take a look at what this topic graph and Discover look like. So if I'm logged in on a mobile device by default, I have the chance to follow topics in the topic graph, which will then prompt me in the Google Discover feed later on. So if I do a search maybe in a sports surrounded topic like Baker Mayfield, on the mobile device, you'll automatically have this little follow button that's showing up. And then if you are in the Google app on the bottom left-hand side, you will also see this little new tab called Discover. And when you launch this, Google will be pulling information from previous searches, search history, and then also just kind of starting to surface information that it believes that you're interested in. So this is queryless search, which is what they mentioned in the second big shift. So I don't even have to search. Google's just going to surface information for me. You can almost think about this as the Instagramification of Google search as we move into discovery. And you can check this out with your friends and your coworkers and just kind of see and compare like your Discover feed versus someone else's, and you will see drastically different things here. You have the ability to go in. There are those three little buttons next to anything that surfaces that will allow you to trim. You can either turn up or turn down your level of interest. You can hit, like, say, food photography. You can follow that topic, and it will continue surfacing information for that. Something else we may also want to note is that you can also share this particular topic. If you are a brand and that particular knowledge panel is super interesting to you, you can also claim that as your own. So if I'm Baker Mayfield, I can claim my own knowledge panel and have a little bit of control over that. But the bigger point I really want to show you is just how drastically different it is from an organic search perspective. Within this topic, you can see that Google already recognizes from the knowledge graph that Baker Mayfield is a football quarterback, and then it's also providing these additional tabs. There's overview, top stories, videos, stats, more people, and each of these tabs is a completely different set of separate results. And just to make things trickier for us SEOs, this is a case where we can really only track what's showing up on that first page of results. So challenge is on us, time for us to step up, right? Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into what's happening with some of these. If we are looking at the overview tab, the first thing that we're getting here, notice, is not a standard organic result. It's not a standard set of 10 blue links. What we're getting is a top stories integration. They typically include usually 1 to 2 text-based results. Oftentimes you will see side-scrolling search experiences Each integrated URL here, you will notice, it has a little AMP icon. What this means is if you are looking to even get accepted into top stories, you definitely need to have AMP. You need to be available for the Google Newsfeed for publishers as well. Let's dive a little deeper into how this mobile search result appears. So again, we have top stories, we have Twitter integrations, we have a knowledge panel for about Baker Mayfield, we have video integrations, we have more people, we then have top results. So let's go through a little bit of these and what's going on here and just show you how drastically different this is from a user experience level. Here we can find all of the side-scrolling SERP integrations. A few that we should point out, one is called Notable Moments. This is very new. So if I was, let's say, a sports site that's streaming information about various team players and stats and information, one of the ways we use to optimize for things like this would be to build pages that are sort of a large biography of interesting moments through a person's life. But Google's just going ahead and sourcing these from various sites around the web. If I was a publisher, this would probably scare me to death. But another on the top right is, you'll notice it says Heisman Trophy Award winners. So this is where Google is now stepping above the knowledge graph into a topic graph. It's recognizing Baker Mayfield as a football quarterback. He's won a Heisman Trophy Award. By the way, here's a bunch of additional Heisman Trophy Award winners. So if I'm a real sports geek, I don't even have to really leave the search result too much in order to just get the information I'm looking for in a very quick way. So what happened to the organic results? Where are they? Well, here we go, our standard results. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, so we do actually get 10 of these, but we will also see over time, if you're actually in the search results, looking at your information in regular searches on a regular basis, some of these are as low as 4 in some cases. So this shows where all that no-click searches is actually going to. It's going right into Google properties and staying right within Google itself, right within its walled garden. Okay. So if we were to unfold what's happening here, just from the search integration standpoint, we saw that there were 7 side-scrolling integrations included. But what that actually means is there's an additional 59 results crammed into what used to be just 10 blue links. And that's only on the first tab of what's appearing here. Let's just let that sink in for a minute. So if you look and see what's going on in some of these other tabs, in particular the More People tab, note, if we think back in time, Google went through this whole thing with entity recognition back in 2012 when it started building out the knowledge graph. So again, it's noting that people are recognized by Google as an entity. This is driven by entity recognition as well as semantic markup. The knowledge graph in general kind of relates these initial factoids. And the SERPs that are to the right here are kind of below the fold on this tab. And you can see that these are very information rich, very data dense. And so if you're looking to get involved in this area of the tab, you really need to be writing super long form content, definitely be including AMP, structured markup. And so this is where you can see on an even deeper level how much Google is connecting entity search and topical search. They've gone up a layer in terms of information complexity in a way that's much more human. So again, this is all tied to Google starting to look at connected searches over time in history, being able to predict those out into an exploration of a larger topic. And then on the third shift that we spoke about earlier is just how much Google is beginning to focus again, moving away from text towards images. One of the ways that they're doing this is through the expansion of accelerated mobile pages, or AMP, and AMP stories. So here we can see just a general search for CNN. This is back when Hurricane Michael was coming through. And we can see that those visual stories from CNN are kind of popping up. You can launch them, and then you get, again, this kind of Instagram-like, Snapchat-like, Facebook-like stories integration that's showing up in the search results. This is definitely something we'll be exploring more. These do have a dedicated space within the search results. And if you're a publisher of any kind, we would definitely recommend taking advantage of all of the new markup. If you are a WordPress user, I believe they just recently updated some of the AMP plugins for WordPress along with the Gutenberg. So you need the latest version of WordPress to be able to develop these stories directly from inside your website. So thank you everyone for our first round of looking through what's new and happening and trending. I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. Greg.
Wow, thanks so much for that, Brandon. I still cannot believe that number, 59 new mobile SERP integrations. Really interesting. I'm sure our audience is buzzing with questions for you. If you have questions, remember to tweet using our hashtag TSA Talk for our live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So Brandon just walked us through how Google's evolving from search to discovery and highlighted some of the new SERP integrations that Google's rolled out recently. So that segues really nicely into our next speaker, our Associate Director of Earned Media, Greg SIDOR, who's going to explain how brands can optimize for and capitalize on these new features. Take it away, Greg.
Right, thank you, Tina. So I'm going to pick up the baton and run a little more with our search integrations. Search integrations are special features that accompany traditional organic links. Among the most familiar are featured snippets, people also ask boxes, images, news articles, and knowledge panels. However, there's a lot more to search integrations than many people realize. This slide shows a selection of what's out there, and it's a pretty crowded field right now. So what does this mean for business? I performed a mobile search for 2019 Dodge Challenger. Now, everything you see here is accessible from the first screen. And much as Brandon had shown you the tabs, this search result has the same feature, and clicking on them produces an integration and a new SERP down page based on what Google thinks you're looking for. There are several opportunities for sites to rank here, but you'll notice that the 10 blue links are nowhere to be found. So as I scroll further down, we see things like configurations, similar models, top stories, people also ask questions, and then an organic link to Dodge. Now that first organic placement is essentially 4 screens down. We have 3 more organic results, followed by a block of videos, and then there's 1 more link. So as you can see, search integrations dominate this query. This is an example of some of the search integrations I came across for various queries. Now, all but the videos are assembled by Google, scraping content from the web. Now, sometimes they're nice enough to source that, but many times they don't provide any kind of background information. Now, we're not done yet. Of particular interest to e-commerce sites is a feature you see here, the Research Multimedia Projectors section, which collects content from multiple sites and creates a carousel. Now, Google has also taken an article written by Time Out and broke it into a carousel of venues in that lower right placement. The article that this is based on is presented in AMP format, which was a good move on this publisher's part because Google has been able to assemble a very interesting feature there. So if we're going to take advantage of all of these cool new toys, there needs to be a deliberate strategy guiding content creation and publishing. You have to think about what integrations make sense for you, how they move customers across the purchase path, and you can target some of these by making changes to your own site, but others require an off-site strategy that may involve databases and third-party publishers. I can give you an example of a couple ways brands have done that. If you're Lowe's, making a video for how to fix a leaky faucet and adding it to your YouTube page is a great idea, which is probably why they did that, and now have a nice integration at the top of the search results for the search how to fix a leaky faucet. Now, you probably have never heard of Plumbing Masters in Phoenix, Arizona, but if you look directly below that video, they've got a people also ask question, and that's been sourced from their site. On the right, you have 4 law firms with articles that have been placed in interesting finds for the search Motorcycle Attorney Los Angeles. Now, each of those pages have something in common, and that is that they contain long-form content that Google has deemed to be worthy of this special treatment. So it's not just the number and type of search integrations that we need to be concerned with. Overall, search has become incredibly dynamic. Mobile and desktop results are usually different. Personalization and localization mean each keyword that you're tracking may have dozens of SERPs associated with it. And then finally, the results you see today could be completely different from what appears tomorrow. And this is what SEOs mean when we say that the keyword is dead. Success will be measured by traffic and conversions, not ranking positions, because that metric simply isn't what it used to be. These search integrations give us a preview of things to come. Now, there's a few brands that are taking full advantage, so now's the time for forward-thinking companies to make their presence known on the new SERP. And we are definitely looking forward to helping you with that. So now I'd like to move on to the second part of my presentation, which is the rise of the devices. 2018 is probably going to be seen as the year that smart speakers went mainstream. By January of 2019, 66.4 million Americans had one in their home, and that was a 40% increase over January of 2018. People are now interacting with search in new ways, and they rely on smart devices to help them answer questions, accomplish tasks, and in some cases, even complete transactions. As time goes on, more and more of your customers will be among this group. Now, this has major implications for businesses big and small. First, there will be fewer ranking opportunities where voice search is concerned. While some devices come with screens, or they can send data to your phone, many queries can be answered by citing a single source. While the loss of the 10 blue links have serious consequences for brand visibility, changing customer expectations could also impact your bottom line. Searchers are becoming more demanding and are interested in instant answers and relevant up-to-the-minute information on things like inventory. Many major players like Domino's are even allowing people to complete transactions via smart speakers and mobile devices. Now, this type of thing is especially relevant for companies where return visits and reordering play a factor, since it eliminates the need to evaluate products on a screen. So how then can a company position itself for success on smart devices? There are 4 parts to successful execution: producing relevant content, creating skills and actions, building fast sites, and including structured data as a standard practice. So that first point, too often online content strategies are guided by what companies want to say to users. The rise of the devices turns this on its head. Customers are asking the questions, and your brand needs to be there with the best answer. So this example shows a selection of Google searches around the keto diet. Data like this can be used to plan category pages and blog entries tailor-made for voice search. You can see here just dozens, if not 100, various searches about that diet. As far as skills and actions, both Amazon and Google allow developers to build custom interactions for devices in an ecosystem that's separate from their website. Now in Alexa, that's called skills, and early adopters include TD Ameritrade, Domino's, Starbucks, and Kayak. Several of these allow you to complete transactions, while others provide useful information that injects their brand into whatever journey the searcher is on. Not to be left behind, Google has a similar program referred to as Actions on Google that works with Google Home devices and the Google Assistant. So right now, you can ask questions about car insurance rates, order the usual at Starbucks, or send flowers to whomever you've wronged. There's also an action for dad jokes, which I'm sure is very useful. Now, if we go back to your own website, the third element of any plan to compete on smart devices is site speed. Much as with traditional search, delays can knock your web page out of the running for a voice response. A lightweight site has long been a best practice in SEO, but it's even more important now that some searches will deliver only one result, and no one wants to be kept waiting on their voice result. And finally, structured data is also important. Search bots love things like schema markup because it breaks down complex subjects into fields of data. The easier it is for a machine to understand your site, the more likely it is to translate that data into coherent answers. And what we see here is a screen grab of how this book information has been translated into schema markup. And it's conceivable that soon Google will be able to just assemble answers and conversations from data like this. So taken together, checking off these 4 boxes can support a smart device strategy. Much with search integrations, now is the time to consider smart device opportunities specific to your business, evaluate your current website in light of these developments, and plan resources accordingly before your competitors beat you to it. Now I am going to pass it off to my colleague, Amanda.
Great, thanks so much, Greg. That was really helpful. If you have any questions for Greg, tweet your hashtag with your question with the hashtag TSA Talk for our live Q&A after Amanda's presentation. So next up, we have our manager of earned media, Amanda HAXTON, who's going to talk to us about something that I personally find so fascinating and highly recommend implementing this year, which is this concept of topic clusters. And with all these new insights and trends to test in 2019, Amanda's going to wrap things up for us with some SEO tactics and strategies you should definitely leave behind.
Hey everyone, the first topic I'm going to talk about today is topical content clusters, looking at what they are and how we're seeing them being used by businesses. Topic clustering is a strategy for organizing and architecting your content into a group cluster structure, which focuses on topics rather than individual keywords. Topical content clusters have been growing in popularity for the last couple of years, and in 2019, we're really seeing businesses adopt this en masse. It's actually been since the 2013 Hummingbird update that we've seen Google shift away from keywords and favor a topical focus. And content strategies are now finally catching up with those changes in the SERP. The growing popularity of this strategy is good news for your overworked content teams because it's focused on content quality and not quantity. Cutting down on the creation of excessive or siloed content which targets individual long tail keywords and moving forwards with less content that focuses on a topic in depth. So cluster content is great for readers who might want to explore a topic in depth and easily find related content that helps people stay on your pages for longer and explore more pages in every session. However, for the strategy to really see its full SEO value, the internal linking structure of your topic cluster matters just as much as the content itself. Topic clusters center around a central page, which provides an overview of the broader topic. This page is known as the pillar page, and it's depicted in this diagram with a big blue circle. Smaller subtopics are known as cluster pages and shown here in the gray circles. The pillar page will link to all of the other pages in the topic cluster, and they in turn will link back to the pillar page, creating a sort of spider's web of internal links that show the connection between them. When a backlink comes into any of your cluster pages, it benefits the entire topic group. This linking structure shows a semantic relationship between each page, catering to Google's Atlantic semantic indexing algorithm, which is a bit of a mouthful that basically means discovering how a term and content work together to mean the same thing. Your cluster topics don't have to focus on long tail variations of the same keyword, but they should be semantically related. In this example, if our pillar topic was the ultimate guide to on-page SEO, our subtopics or cluster pages could be things like content, SEO and UX, and keyword research, etc. So what does this look like in the wild? There are a number of businesses implementing content strategies that you can check out. This example is from The Atlantic, who partnered on some sponsored content with Athena House called Population Healthier. In this example, The Atlantic has created a really rich pillar page on a very in-depth topic, and they've got an article menu you can see here on the left that allows you to break out into subtopics. In addition to the article menu, there are relevant anchor text links to the cluster pages within the content itself. And both of these linking layouts work to create clustered content alone or together. If you want to look at some more cluster examples, you can check out HubSpot's blog. They've implemented the topic cluster strategy themselves, and they're championing the trend using their own blog as a case study. If this is a strategy that would work well for your business, here are some takeaways that you should consider before implementing. We can think of a pillar page as the main content hub for an overarching topic. There should only be one pillar page for each topic cluster group. The pillar page will cover a topic broadly, touching on each of our subcategories or cluster topics, but without going into depth on either of them. The pillar page will target the broad, high-volume keywords for your chosen overarching topic, but should focus on writing naturally about a topic and not keyword stuffing. The pillar page links to each and all of the cluster pages. The cluster page, however, will cover a subtopic that relates to our overarching theme in depth. The cluster page should link back to the pillar page and can link to a limited number of other pages in the cluster. We don't want the cluster page to be mistaken as the pillar page by linking to all other pages. So when we say a limited number of pages, a good example would be if we had a series of learning material, you could link to the course overview, which would be our pillar page, and then the next topic in the course series and the previous topic. So far we've been talking about new changes and strategies in SEO and some of the changes that we're seeing in the SERPs. But to finish our webinar today, I'm going to look at some outdated tactics that we should be leaving behind. As SEOs, we've got to keep up with a constantly changing search landscape. And to make room for some of these new strategies and new features in the SERPs, we do need to leave some outdated practices behind. Today, we're going to look at 5 tactics you should be leaving behind in 2019. First up is keyword stuffing. And this is really a tactic that should have been left behind years ago, but one which we do continue to see used frequently. It's an outdated SEO technique that did work very well in its heyday, and it's designed to manipulate search engines by creating spammy content that's solely focused on keywords instead of on quality content. Keyword stuffing creates a poor user experience, and it's generally very low quality content for the user. It's jarring, it can be very boring to read content that has been stuffed with keywords. Although it can see some short-term gains, keyword stuffing is now considered a black hat tactic, and it could lead to ranking drops or penalties. We should be moving away from this hyper-focus on individual keywords and moving towards in-depth topical relevance. And that's something that Greg and Brandon have spoken about earlier in this presentation, this focus on topical relevance instead of on individual keywords. That could be implemented in the form of a topic cluster strategy like I looked at previously, or it could be simply high-quality individual pieces of content. Next up, and in a similar vein, we're looking at over-optimized alt text. So alt text is foremost used to describe an image to a visually impaired person, and secondly, for a robot who can't see or read an image. Alt text has become a really hot topic in the past year as businesses move to become compliant with the American Disabilities or ADA Act. Alt text has definitely been a victim of keyword stuffing in the past. And just as keyword stuffing your body copy on page is seen as spammy, so too is stuffing your image alt text with a string of keywords. Instead, we should be looking to create accurate and relevant alt text descriptions, which support rich and relevant content on your topic. So a reliance on buying links. Backlinks have always played a very important role in the SEO landscape, and they are still relevant in 2019. Link building has been severely abused, but despite some recent reports, it is not yet dead. However, as the landscape becomes more sophisticated, link building tactics must move with the times. Long gone are the days when your SEO strategy could rely on a handful of purchased backlinks. Buying or selling links is a clear violation of Google's webmaster guidelines and will result in a penalty if you're caught. Organically gained links are still important, but they should be part of a more holistic SEO strategy that provides quality content and a positive user experience. Now, this is my favorite tactic that we should be leaving behind, quantity over quality. So as we move away from targeting individual keywords and move towards topical authority, we move away from producing huge quantities of content and focus much more on quality. So many businesses find that they are producing masses of content. They're really straining their resources, and the content that they're producing is often underperforming. Instead, we should be spending more time creating less content that's of a much higher and more focused quality. And my last tactic to leave behind today is the use of multiple domains and multiple subdomains. And most of the tactics that I've talked about leaving behind so far are considered gray or black hat tactics, and this one is an exception. Creating multiple subdomains or separate domains for your business is a legitimate white hat strategy. The aim here is to try and dominate SERPs by ranking with multiple domains. And this has been and is still successful for many sites, such as Zillow or Trulio. However, using this tactic to create new sites and subdomains in 2019 is unlikely to be successful. You run the risk of splitting or cannibalizing your link equity, not to mention those resources, which, as we've already mentioned, are pretty strained already. So instead, we would recommend using subfolders to host your content and focus on raising the overall SEO value and quality of your main site. These are just a handful of tactics to retire in 2019, and we know that there's many more out there. We're really interested to hear your thoughts in the comments on any other tactics that you're leaving or have already left behind. So feel free to reach out to us on Twitter with any of those.
Thanks so much for that, Amanda. Let's definitely hope that our audience left those tactics behind a long time ago. All right, everyone, it is time for our live Q&A with our speakers. So if you have any burning SEO questions for Brandon, Amanda, or Greg, tweet your question with our hashtag TSA Talk, and we'll get through as many as we can. And if we do not get to your question, we'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. So this first question that I have is for Brandon. So Brandon, with all these new integrations appearing directly on the search results, what does that mean for SEO? Is SEO dead?
No, it doesn't mean that SEO is dead. It just means that it's a lot more complicated. So now what's changed is that our strategies really need to be revolving around not just the original 10 blue links, but in making sure that you're showing up in all of the different contexts where someone may be either searching for you or discovering new pieces of content through their journey, and taking advantage of all of those placements that are available. As we've looked at, even just that one quick search result on Baker Mayfield, there are additional, sometimes 59 extra positions within those results for you to take advantage of that may actually be way more engaging than the standard 10 blue links. So I would be looking at what are all the different feature integrations available within your vertical space that are currently available for the content that you're hosting, figuring out what you need to change about your templates or your XML sitemaps in order for Google to pick up on all of the various forms of media that you're serving. Ensure that you're up to date with accelerated mobile pages. If you haven't implemented a strategy for that, you're essentially behind. And so I would be focused heavily on making that a top priority. And then I would look at, one, how you measure that. You need to have some sort of way of predicting how that's going to affect the business, whether it's through brand visibility, increased types of searches, or a new bump in the variety of the kinds of searches that are serving up your content and the various forms of media that you have.
Awesome. That makes sense to me, Brandon. Thanks so much for that. We actually have one more that's also for you, Brandon. If you can jump back over here. How can you move from subdomain to subdirectory if that's already established?
Typically, moving from a subdomain to a subdirectory is fairly simple. If it's because you're on, say, a particularly different platform, oftentimes using a reverse proxy can resolve that issue. Or you can actually, if it's not on a different platform, you can go ahead and merge that content in with your platform, and then just make sure you have the proper 301 redirects from the subdomain to the new location in the subdirectory.
All right, we got questions coming in hot on Twitter, guys. This next one is for Amanda. Amanda, is keyword research still important to a topic cluster strategy?
Keywords are still important in a topic cluster strategy, but they won't feel as forced. If you're writing in depth on a topic with authority, then it's natural you would use the language and the lingo related to that topic. So you can do some keyword research as you plan out your content, just to make sure you're covering the important areas or subtopics of the topic that you're writing about, but you shouldn't be hyper-focusing or keyword stuffing a page towards a single long-tail keyword.
Very cool. Greg, we have one for you coming in on Twitter. Greg, what role do search integrations play in device search beyond featured snippet quick answers?
Yeah, so there's a lot out there, and we saw some of those in our presentations. Interesting finds was one of them. There's, of course, videos, the sort of chronological timelines that Brandon highlighted. And so you need to consider the product or service that you sell and where the opportunities may intersect with those different integrations. And with voice, it's going to be another, kind of wild ride of seeing what new and interesting things come up, whether that be skills and actions, or translating it into translating featured snippets into voice responses. So it really is an open field right now, and we have no doubt that Google will be coming up with new and interesting search integrations.
Very cool. All right, we have another one here for Brandon. Brandon, what can brands do to take advantage of feature integrations, and what should they do to what should they measure to prove their worth? Remember, if you have more questions, head to Twitter with our hashtag TSA Talk.
Well, there are various tools that you can use for understanding what feature integrations are available. A few of them that we know of are, Search Metrics, who we partner with. We also have a partnership with LinkDex. And a lot of these tracking tools have the ability to at least begin to surface which queries have those kinds of integrations coming in. Now with those, what's more important, especially if you're talking to a C-level executive, is to understand how you can use that alongside of the keyword and topical layer research to be able to predict volume. And how that volume is going to affect, leads, new sales, and how that, applies to your funnel depending on what vertical you're in.
All right, and we have another one here for Greg. Greg, is it easier to appear in one type of search integration versus another? And where should we start if this is our first time targeting these placements?
Yeah, so featured snippets really are the place to start for most websites. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that they appear for an increasing number of searches, so there's more opportunity out there on both desktop and mobile. And the other is that it's one that's a little more transparent about optimization. And so we know certain things like building your content so that you include those common questions in the text, that you mark them up with the right header tags. We have certainly seen success in the past with that, and so if you're just getting started with integrations, that's a good place to begin to sort of prove the ability and the worth of those.
All right, let's see what else we got. All right, this next one is for Amanda. Amanda, with everything you were talking about with the topic cluster strategy, is there such a thing as too much content?
I think there can definitely be too much content if you've taken kind of a scattergram approach in the past. Back in the day, a lot of businesses were writing a number of blog posts for a variation of a long tail keyword, even with perhaps the singular and the plural of that keyword. And that content verges on being duplicate. It's usually low quality and underperforming. So if you do have a lot of underperforming content, then you do have too much. And you might then want to look at pruning some of that.
Do any of the other speakers have any follow-ups on that?
I would say we've definitely seen some examples. In a good majority of the sweeping updates, the core updates that we saw in the algorithm in March, we at TSA were always interested in some very large, e-commerce sites that we're always kind of poking our heads around and looking at large winners and losers. Some of them that we saw there, including super large sites like Zazzle, we saw losing out on really big, really fairly big queries surrounding things like wedding invitations and this sort of like over optimization, like Amanda was just talking about. And one of the things that we saw there is outside of just a connection to larger topical relevance pages, a lot of those were very thin. They were kind of almost on the edge of almost being kind of spun content. And the other thing that we noticed is that a lot of those pages were oftentimes disconnected from the overall larger site hierarchy, in the sense that you couldn't navigate to specific landing pages and then downwards through the site like a normal reasonable surfer would. Instead, you have these pages that were disconnected and just there for the particular purpose of trying to capture traffic on a particular term. And I think Google over time, from the beginning of the Panda algorithm, has been really pushing, content producers, including the large e-com brands, away from that kind of strategy to something that's more based around a solid user experience, where you don't need multiple pages for a singular concept. Instead, you just need to have that larger conceptual focus, and then things that are really answering questions that people are asking.
All right, everyone. Well, that concludes our first TSA talk. If we didn't get to your questions, feel free to reach out to us on social and we'll follow up with you directly. Brandon, Greg, Amanda, thank you so much for your time and for sharing such valuable insights today. And then, of course, a huge thank you to our audience for joining. We hope you all learned something new, and be sure to stay tuned for our next TSA talk.